This is a little harder subject to talk about for me. It has to do with Robin Hood, but you'll see why in a minute. Robin Hood is an example of the good outlaw. Back in the notes, in the fourth section perhaps, I talked about the good outlaw, a character who's actually a good man, but the law is bad, and therefore the character has to be an outlaw. And I mentioned that Moses seems to have been that role. So did David. And I gave you other examples as well. Well, I got thinking a good bit about this last night, actually, as I thought that I was going to teach this. I think that the term, this character may sometimes be called the heroic outlaw, not to be confused with a criminal. This kind of a character is very popular. And yet he's a threat to another group. With Robin Hood, the way I understand those legends, the way they're usually set, and remember they're legends, Robin Hood was an outlaw because he had an Anglo-Saxon attitude toward the law, and this was right after the Norman invasion, where the Normans, with the Battle of Hastings, winning that, they ended up invading England, and they applied upon England their Norman ways, basically their French ways, marked our language for good. Well, some of those laws did not sit well with the Anglo-Saxons, who basically had a Germanic attitude. And the law of the hunt said, hunting, said that the deer belonged to the king, and that you had to have the king's permission to kill a deer. I like to point out that in the state of Pennsylvania, it's similar. The deer belong to the state, and the state issues a license for a hunter to kill a deer. And if you kill a deer without a license, basically you're an outlaw. It strikes very true to some of my students and their families. Well, what I thought so much about here was this idea that why would such a character be so universally occurring and so popular? Is there a need for outlaws? And I think there is. As I say, it's not the same as a criminal, really. And in this thinking, I ended up, it occurred to me that Sigmund Freud wrote a book that in college I studied called Civilizations and Its Discontents, where Freud tried to figure out or explain why are some people not content with civilization. In German it's das Unbehagen in der Kultur. It was originally a German book and translated, and I have some German viewers, so this is the book I'm talking about. It fascinated me, that idea, and it applies to the students that I taught, because in any given group of kids it seemed like there were always some outlaws. And a lot of times the girls liked the outlaws, and you'd wonder why. There's something so appealing to some people about an outlaw. My thinking also took me to an essay that was published in the 1960s, I think, or maybe 1970s, called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Maybe it's odd to see those two put together along with Robin Hood, but that very popular and very influential essay argued that science has to proceed through revolutions. And so Galileo, in a sense, was an outlaw within his scientific world. Well, this is a little heavier than what I would normally probably try to... It is heavier than what I would normally explain to my 8th graders. But many of my viewers are not 8th graders. I got thinking about me personally, and I realized, I don't think there's any doubt about it, that I have lived the life, somewhat the life of an outlaw. And I even got thinking about at what point did I become an outlaw? And I think I became an outlaw the week I graduated from Harvard. I think it's that specific. I think it had to do with the war in Vietnam in the 1960s. But there came a point where it wasn't the same as deciding I'm going to be a bad man. I just did not fit well with the law at the time. And sometimes when the law is clearly wrong, you're put in quite a position. Because then what do? In a sense, this class is outlawry. Because we're not doing anything wrong really, but this is not a school that somebody has control of what I teach, because nobody's paying me. So, and if you're watching this, if you're a homeschooler and you're taking my course, it's outside the normal realm of things. In a way, I felt like maybe I shouldn't talk about this at all because I want to go along and have fun and stuff, but I thought maybe to be honest and true, I should explain about this. This series of thoughts that I all got going with the idea of Robin Hood, and how so often there are people that occur that seem to be outside the law. I haven't explained that well, and my apologies. You can always just skip it if you didn't understand. But anyway, on Monday, this is Friday, on Monday we'll go on with stuff that's easier to talk about. And there's my rooster saying have a nice weekend.